Okay, so here I have my Firemobile with the chrome, lovely chrome, and it has a performance badge here, and some vents here, a bonnet thing, and a GLX GT badge on the rear, and another one of those. Because, naturally, I made it a bit more special. But that's not why we're here. We're here because I have a confession to make. Well, this engine isn't the one I had at the time. First, it's bigger and more powerful, but the things like the dual overhead cam, yeah, I've gone a bit too far. It's not really 1953 technology. I'm actually on 1959. So we're going to start with a new engine, and I know just the craziness we need. We want it to be an affordable engine, okay? Can't beat a push-rod inline 3. I think I'll have a 2-litre inline 3, you know, why not? This probably is going to go up in flames. Or we could use direct acting overhead cam. Let's do that. It's better technology, but it's still not stupidly unaffordable. We'll use cast iron all round. We actually have forged, apparently. I need to fix that. Okay, so I've been a foolish banana and I left it in 1959. That's why we had forged. Either way, I think we're going to just use cast all round. I mean, there's such a temptation though to go with an aluminium head. See, blue and silver is our channel's colours, and the only way I can get blue and silver is by going with aluminium, but it's all a bit advanced. Yeah, we can still have a blue and we can have some chrome bits, so I'll settle for that. But I'll return when I've adjusted it all. Alright then, by the looks of it, we have some difficulty with the inline 3. It's the carburettor. We can only go with a single carburettor, which is disappointing, so we're going to have to use an inline 4, unfortunately. I mean, the size of this was already getting a little crazy. We're looking 2.5 litres. But inline 4 it is. So, we have my idea of a high revving engine, 5400 RPM. To be honest, at 2 valves per cylinder, this isn't actually much worse than the other technology. Not as much as I expected. It's reduced power, but it's not having problems at least. It's not very good for power. It only makes 105 horsepower. But it's something to build upon. I think I'm going to move to an inline 6 though, with the increase of cylinders. Just comparing this to the other engine of my commenter, we're 1 point down for reliability and we're slightly cheaper for servicing costs, so you can see immediately, even if it's not making crazy levels of power, we have what's overall a more competitive engine here. I think just crucially we need more torque though. If only we could get turbochargers, that would help, but it's a 50, so we can't do that. Still, I'll proceed with the inline 6, which is probably my best option actually. Okay, so we have the RPM here. It just seems to valve float though. There's no bottom end problems at all, which is odd. I mean, I think I can even rev it to 9,000. Admittedly, it probably wants to blow up by this point, but it's not telling me there's any problems other than valve float. Okay, so I'm thinking with this engine, I'm not really going to bother with power. I just don't like the weight, and ultimately I've created that crazy engine now, and I've got power, but ultimately what I want now is kind of efficiency, and this kind of offers it. It's 123 horsepower and 157 newton meters of torque. There's still small refinements I've got to make, and yes, it's going to be beaten by the Burnside for power. But the point is, this is just going to be a lighter engine that's overall better for the car's balance. I mean, compared to the other engine, this is just over 200 kilos. I can probably take about 100 kilos off the front axle of a car even, which is always handy, you know. Reliability is not that impressive actually. It's less impressive than the inline 4, mind. So, I might even go back to an inline 4. And it's decent for servicing costs, but still fairly expensive. So, for what I'm looking for, I think an inline 4 is actually the better engine, crazy as it sounds. I am going to come back to this and see just what I can do, just what I can get out of it, but as a basic tune, this works at 2.5 litres. So we'll move on to a transmission now. Infotainment, you are the weakest link. Until I sort you out, I'm stuck in 1958. Okay, so the game has been having some odd glitches since it thinks I'm in 1959, to a certain extent, but you'll see here the engine has improved the balance. It's not 54 front, it's 52.6 front, which is always nice. The top speed is also 105 now, due to the lack of cooling that's necessary. If we look in the markets, we'll see we have reduced the price actually, which is always good. The radio helped with that. I was messing around with the radio. So you see we're on basic. I think we'll go with premium. Same kind of level as the interior. We also have some kind of assist. We don't want power steering, that keeps it in the 1960s. So we'll see, it's a lighter car now. If it ever shows the weight, 1416.5, which is nice. So I'll keep tweaking the engine now, and I'll show you what I have when I'm done. Okay, so I've changed two things. Firstly, I've made the engine a 3 litre engine instead of a 2.5. And secondly, I've lowered the red line. And then, naturally, it's adjusted everything else to fit. It's 4800 because I wanted to keep the reliability above 39. Again, close enough. It's 0.6 below the other inline 6 now, but it's okay for me. I'm trying to build a cheap engine here. Servicing costs have gone up. They're now 1121, but it's still about 43-ish cheaper than the other engine, which is good. Trying to keep this thing fairly economical, even though it's not the cheapest engine in the world. The material cost is pretty good actually. $890. Which is, again, fairly close to the other engine. That's a little more, about 50 more on that other engine. So I think I've done a decent job. We're claiming this to be the cheaper to run engine. It's probably only a slight improvement, but I'll take what victories I can. The exhaust is at 2 inches. I can't really do anything about that. It is what it is. Still, it can go quite fast thanks to the lower air resistance and the lower weight. As a matter of fact, I question if I should make the engine even smaller. But then there is the acceleration, which is pretty poor as it is. Miles per gallon is 15.6, which is pretty decent for the time. Although, yeah, I doubt people are going to be throwing out their V8s to get one of these. Also, we have very low-end bias gears. Sure, it can supposedly do 110, but we want it to accelerate more. Acceleration and economy are more important than just getting good economy at the expense of everything else. There is some wheel spin, surprisingly enough. And it's 1963 again. We need to fix that. Okay, so I've messed around with a flat plane V8 at 2.5 litres and the servicing costs are not thanking me. Neither is the reliability. But I may have a plan if I can get it to work how I want it to. Okay, so I've managed to go from my inline 4, which was powerful, light, cheap to service and fairly reliable, to something that's less reliable, more expensive to service, but it is lighter and it costs less to manufacture. Truth be told, it would be cheaper to just build another engine than to actually service this thing. You could probably build 2 engines cheaper than it would cost to service it, which is craziness actually. You see the economy is fairly poor. The weight is 140.6 kilograms though. And yes, it's a 1.6 litre V8. It's almost like I'm trying to be American, but I don't quite know how to, so I just built an absolutely tiny engine, and it's still a V8, so it somehow makes me a qualified American. Okay. Not very good logic, but I think that's why I built the engine. I'm just trying too hard to be American here, okay? Moving on. Yep, 15.5 seconds to 62 miles per hour, but look at that weight balance, 51.2 front. Yeah, I need to build something that could actually work though. Not something that just works in my head. Sorry guys, this is what happens when I attempt to be sensible. Why does this happen? I don't know. I have a strange mind. I'd rather build a massively overcomplicated tiny V12 than just accept a large inline 4. Why am I so strange? I finally built an engine that's both more reliable and cheaper to service than that inline 6. And all it took was less than 2/3 of the power and half the cylinders. And yes, it is a 2.5 litre inline 3. I'm actually going to make it larger since 101 horsepower is just on the stupid end of underpowered. Okay, so I'm happy with this engine now. If I just remove the menus and show you the head, you'll see it's now red. That's because the carburettor's red regardless of what else there is, as are those cables. So I just decided to match everything up so it looked a bit less messy, to be honest. And the weight is 194 kilograms, just under 195. Reliability has also gone up, which I can largely attribute to the single barrel carburettor. I tried that, and I tried the 2-barrel, and I tried the Eco. The single doesn't really make any difference, probably because of the type of engine and that it's only got 3 cylinders, so I settled for that. The RPM is also quite low. I mean, I've not changed that, to be honest. I could lower it still, but I don't see much need to do that. The engine is slightly larger now, 2.6 litres. It's about as large as I could have without having to mess with a stroke and make that taller, because then that just destroys the reliability of it, and I don't want that. Quite cheap to service, despite the size, probably because, again, only 3 cylinders. And I'm happy with this as a kind of eco engine. I mean, it belongs in a Mini. I can't deny that. It would actually haul a modern Mini along at quite some speed. Because it's not bad, even by modern standards. It's just massive. But still, I'll put this in a muscle car and just hope it works. Okay, so here we have our car powered by this, well, pretty disgraceful inline 3. It is reliable though, and it's cheap to service, so I guess Americans who are poor will buy it. Although, why would you be buying a new car if you're poor? I don't know. We don't do very good market research at my company. We just ask one person in the street and say that'll do. Rebalance is still better than it used to be though. But I'm not happy. I'll also show you the transmission. It does 105. Yay, low drag. I think we'll mess around in markets. As a family sport premium, it's apparently 87.5% competitive. Yeah, I don't think you're really going to buy this if you want a sports car. Now, can we... If we make no profit, we can sell it for 14,000. I'm thinking 14,500, and 4% profit seems pretty decent. We could probably cheap out on more bits, actually, because the engine's so cheap. We also need to rename it. That is not an appropriate name. We'll call it 6 Valve Special. Because sure, 6 valves is obviously impressive back in 1953. Or 1963, I don't know. It's being very awkward here. I'll return. Okay, so here we have another inline 3. It's a 2.1 litre engine in this case, and it makes 88.8 horsepower. I can make more power from it, but we've got a strange predicament going on, you see. I did decide to make this rear engined, and that causes some fair size problems. That's why the engine's as small as it is. You'll see here, I make it larger and it struggles for height. So in this particular case, an inline 4 should be the better option. And it's also a weird car. I mean, I might as well keep with the weirdness and just keep it rear engine. So I'll see what I can do and then I'll return. Okay, so here I've made an interesting engine. It still barely fits in the car. It's still got height as a real problem. But it is a 2.8 litre engine, and it weighs just under 210 kilograms. Reliability is also pretty good. It's 0.5 below the other engine, yet I'm okay with that, you know. It's still a fairly reliable block. I could lower it a little with the revs and get slightly better economy there, but I decided it's not worth it. It maxes out about 4700 RPM. Surprisingly enough, the revs just settled at that when I was messing with the timing and things, or certain parts. I forget the name, but it works. The servicing cost is also okay. It's not great, but I can't go with an inline 3. And the material cost, the same there. It's not a powerful engine, but it's not designed for that. You'll see the economy is actually exceptional for the day, 861. That's not bad at all, probably because I've used twin eco carburetors. I mean, they get enough power, and with the engine in the back, the weight will always be over where the power's being put down. It's kind of an alternative to increasing the power in my book. You'll see here, I actually increased it a little, there we go. That really affects the economy. That's why I didn't do it originally. Like, this stuff will fly down. Trouble is, so will other bits. Okay, so here is our final engine. It also has a very, very strong amount of torque, actually. I mean, it's not a huge amount of torque in itself, but the way it comes along is very nice and very strong. I'm not saying it's quite enough to move the weight of a car. I'm not sure about that, but it should get the thing going at least. Just let it rev now. You'll see it's got a smaller RPM range and it moves through it probably slower than another car because of the long gears, so everything should work out okay. The exhaust also, I might be able to get a horsepower or two here. No, it's good. We can get more torque though at the cost of power. I don't think we want that. Quality is all on 0 as well. I lowered the bits of ways to quality before as it wasn't necessary. Now you'll see the speed is about the same. I mean, it was worth a try. I think acceleration's better though, which is what I was going for, considering how little power it's got, as is the economy. So I've managed to make the vehicle efficient. I've not made it the most amazing vehicle in the world, but it's efficient. Now it's just time to adjust this until I get what I want from it. There we go. It's still biased to the lower gears, but at that point we're still getting good acceleration and good economy. 21.2 for an American barge, essentially. It's not too bad, really. Problem is, it's massively underpowered. I mean, it's a weird car, but that suits me. 4 cylinders and a rear-engined layout. Presumably all that stuff at the front then is the bonnet. Now, I think we'll go with a manual locker still. Although it should grip better as well. When you really get stuck in mud and stuff, at least the weight is there to help it grip. We'll probably just push it to the ground even further. But don't tell them that. I might have sorted the year out as well now. So the wheels I've got, the 155s, but let's be honest, it's an underpowered engine. I'm not bothered about that for once. They work, you know, and they're 15 inches, so I can fit decent brakes. Brakes are always important. I think we can push the pad type down. Slightly favouring comfort actually now, since we've gone so far the other way on power. There's not really a point trying to set up as a sports car. So, the cooling airflow. We actually have enough. Craziness, I know, the engine's in the back. But we have enough cooling for it. Wow, I like this though. No one would ever guess it's rear engined. I know it's probably inaccurate, but I'll accept it just because I like weird things, okay? So, the cooling is actually incredibly good though, actually, as a matter of fact. We don't need that much. Also, again, the comfort. We don't need crazy levels of braking performance because it's set up for comfort. We're not trying to set it up for crazy amounts of braking performance, just enough to stop it when you need to stop it. Even if you are taking one of these down the track, it's far too slow for you to ever need to use the brakes to a point they would overheat, I would think. I would somehow manage to do it if it was in BeamNG, but that's me, and you know how extreme I can get with my aggressive driving. Either way, I think we can leave all this stuff the same, and move on to the suspension. We need to set this for comfort, because if it's not on comfort, then what do, eh? Drivability is 0.1, sportiness is 0. Yeah, I don't get how it is. It's just barely drivable. Maybe the tyres have gone. I need to sort that out. We'll see it's actually fairly light now as well for what it is. It's 1365.5 kilograms. That's verging on European kinds of weight, thanks to the unitary construction, I would say. Now, if we look at the design and test track, we'll see weight balance is terrible. Maybe that's why it's near undrivable, I don't know. Still, I'll make the odd final adjustment to the car and then return. Okay, so I may have fixed the drivability problems. It looks a little stupider than I would like now with these wheels, but we have managed to get 195 rear and 155 front. The reason I've done that is, if you'll see here, it recommends 155 front, 215 rear. 215 rear we can't quite achieve, not with this technology at least, but it's progress. It seems with a rear engine layout it does prefer wider rear tyres, so I'm happy to comply with that. I also forgot to mention that when I did go to the rear engine layout, I changed the suspension to McPherson strut, front and rear. It was already McPherson strut on the front admittedly, but on the rear now it's McPherson strut. I don't want double wishbone, it seems fairly pointless for the money. I mean, I can do that, but you get essentially the same thing for a lot more money. If I were to do it on a sports car or something with a lot of power, it might work, but on this it doesn't. Now, we also have other options. We could build a space frame, but that's no mass production. So, again, I'll continue looking and see what I find. Okay, so the main thing I've done now is just reduce the quality on everything to 0. It makes the car a little cheaper, it makes it a little more competitive overall, and yeah, we're making less profit. We want it to be 11,500, or in other markets maybe more, I don't know, it doesn't seem to change. Comes up as a family premium in Frunia, if I can even say that properly. Yeah. It's a premium family car. Yes, nothing weird about it at all. So I'll double check the suspension as I do. And I'll show you the weight balance, which is 33.7 front, 66.3 rear, and 1322.4. That was thanks to the quality reduction, which made it cheaper. So let's take it round the Nürburgring and see how it does. Please don't be terrible. Okay, so it's set a 12-minute time. We beat the Trabant, okay? I'll accept the tiny victory I can. Now, we need to rename our vehicle. 6-valve special is no longer a kind of accurate term. So I think we need to call it the inline for rear power, because it's the best thing I can think of. Or rear powered, I don't know, I've probably spelled it wrong. Close enough. Yeah, just see how our engine is specifically trimmed to match that metal. Like, someone really precisely cut around that metal to fit the engine in. Craziness, eh? Now, the engine, we can call it our rear i4 100. I know it's not specifically 100 horsepower, but it's just over, so I'll accept that. The variant can be, just call it stock 53 or stock 1953, since I can probably build on this engine in the future. Maybe if I build a newer vehicle or something, I could use a much improved version of this engine. It's a decent idea in itself. I think it's just an idea that was ahead of its time. As far as the Burnside goes, I still think it's a decent rival for that car. It's just more of using a energy efficient engine. It's slower and still a pretty sporty car for its time. Still quite fast, but not as fast as a Burnside. But then if I'm going for a kind of premium car that's less speed, more kind of rear end grip, more ease of use, it might work for that. As well as more economical, of course. I remember when I built the V12, this thing temporarily had 6 carburetors. Madness, eh? Still, unrealistic as that is, it's behind us now. So if we zoom through here, we can see kind of the inside of our car. Yeah, it's not an interior modelling simulator, we have to admit that. And I don't know why there's still a driveline there. That should be completely unnecessary. All the action happens in the rear. But we can take the body panels off and have a look at what's underneath here. So you'll see it's actually very, very simple. You have the engine, the transmission, and then it just sends power to the wheels. McPherson struts all around. I could perhaps have used double wishbone on the wheel since it's under more pressure with the engine and things, but I don't see much point. They're both independent suspension technologies. They both do the same thing, even if one is slightly more effective at its job. Still, I've got a car that I'm sort of happy with. So, goodbye until another day.